welcome back, everybody, to the Right Seat podcast. Last time we were here, we were talking about business valuations with Chris Powers at Global Wealth Advisors, something that's often overlooked. And so this time we have something else that's, I guess, sort of often overlooked. At least the managed part of IT is sort of overlooked. Usually people will come to IT when there's a problem, right? So this time we have here Steve Jordan, COO of SUURV Technologies, and this is exactly what they do. So Steve, welcome, and thank you for being with us.
For sure. Thanks for having me, Karen.
Absolutely. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about SUURV, how you guys started, and what you guys do, and where you guys are, your vision is for the future growth of your company.
Well, sure. So, SUURV started on paper in early 2018, late 2017. It was kind of a rebrand of another company that had grown organically for a little while. Like most MSPs, it kind of started out as somebody just having an IT job and then doing some moonlighting or something, and then it kind of got away from them. So you end up with scenarios where you're going, man, all of a sudden I need help, And so by the time I got in, I started February 2018. So, there was one guy doing some paperwork and making the website and that kind of thing. One guy actually doing ops, and then a sales guy, and then me. And so it's grown a little bit over the years. There's about 27 of us now, if you include a couple of part-timers.
Okay.
Yeah. So quite a bit of growth.
Yeah.
So very different.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, or in some cases it's congratulations or condolences, right? Sometimes you go, this was much simpler when we were just fixing stuff, and now all of a sudden you get an email and it's like, this is the FCC, you need to register as a telecom provider, and you're like, I really don't want I don't want to talk to you. I just want to fix things for people. I don't want the federal government asking questions about how we resell telecom services, So it's gotten kind of a wild ride over the years now.
Sounds like it. Yeah. So I guess it's been about 7 years. So tell me what you find that's most rewarding in your journey with SUURV.
Well, so it's kind of interesting, right? You start out in most businesses, you start out to do whatever it is that you're actually doing in the business, right? Mm-hmm. Someone's like really good at making cabinets. So it's like, I'm going to open a cabinet shop, right? And I'll make cabinets. And then you get to where all of a sudden there's 20 people involved and you're not making cabinets anymore. You're now the guy who's messing with HR stuff and IT stuff and legal stuff and accounting stuff, right? So, early on, it was kind of fun from the tech angle, right? And the rewarding part was somebody calls up, they have a problem, and you get to be the white knight, right? You show up, and it's like the printer doesn't work, and this gal's trying to print payroll. It's 3:30 on a Wednesday. Everybody's going to be mad if it's not done by 5. She's nervous. She's worried about it. You fix the printer. You figure out what's wrong with QuickBooks or whatever. She gets to run payroll. Everybody gets to go home and play with their kids, right? That's the goal.
Right.
And then, it's morphed as the company's grown. Now we've got, there's 25, 27 of us, right? Mm-hmm. And you say 25 for easy math, and then 25 husbands or wives or whatever, and then 2 or 3 kids apiece, and all of a sudden you're talking 100, 125, 150 people that you're responsible for.
Right.
And so the rewarding part there, you get to take someone. We had a guy that known him for a couple of years, but he was building sheds. Great work ethic, though, and he needed a change in life. So we were able to bring him in. He's doing network wiring for us and building servers and mail migrations and stuff. And, he and his wife, and he's got a couple of kids, I think 4 kids now.
Wow.
They can afford to have kids. They bought a house, right? We had one of the gals the other day. She had a baby. It was our first SUURV baby. We were joking. We were like, we're gonna put the logo. You're gonna get like a onesie with the logo or something.
That's cute.
But when the company does well, like the company has to do well so that the people can flourish too, right?
Right.
If you have the company, it's like, the bottom line looks great, but nobody can have kids. No one can afford to buy a house. Can't afford to buy a car.
Yeah, where's the reward in that, right?
Yeah. Who's actually coming out ahead in this? At that point, it's not flourishing if the people that work there can't flourish too, right?
Right.
And the customers, everybody who's touching the company. So that's been the rewarding part. I think this last probably 2-3 years, making that switch from me and 7 or 8 buddies fixing things for people to
Right.
how can I protect and care for these people so that they can keep protecting and caring for their families, and just have a good outcome for everybody.
I love that. That's really warming.
Yeah.
Very good. So let's talk about the IT part. A lot of people, small businesses, I mean, it's very common that people have in-house IT, just like working at Global Business Advisors. A lot of people have in-house payroll and in-house HR, and they just have someone that's convenient in the office doing that for them and not necessarily the experts to really help minimize all the risks that are out there. So we always tell people don't DIY, you partner with people. Your business is just classic ideal to partner with, right? But what do you tell those businesses that are still doing IT in-house?
Yeah.
What are the pitfalls?
Well, so the funny thing is you're going through kind of the business cycle. You guys see this too. You end up with the cabinet guy again, right? He goes to build cabinets, and that's what he's really good at. And, a lot of times his wife's doing the books, right? They get QuickBooks online. It's, $25 a month or whatever. And she sends him invoice or whatnot. And, his brother-in-law or his cousin or the guy from church or something, they hire a couple of people. And you just don't worry about HR, right? You don't worry about IT. And it's like, we went to Office Depot, we bought a printer, it kind of works. The internet works, everything basically works. And when it doesn't work, well, we figure it out, right? And so you have in that beginning of the business cycle, people just kind of winging it. And you have to, right? I mean, you can't just go and pay somebody $2,000 a month to watch out for whatever. And if all of your employees are, those first 5 or 7 employees, they're not just random people.
Right.
It's, this lady starts a business and her husband is, the delivery guy, right? You're not worried about HR stuff.
Right.
But you get to where you have 12 or 15 employees and all of a sudden, I want them to have access to this folder, but not this other folder. Or, so-and-so has a company cell phone, but the other person doesn't. Well, yeah, but I've known Jim Bob for like 20 years, so we're fine with them having access to that. And you start to have this HR question of, well, why does this person get this special treatment, this person doesn't? And we have the same thing with IT, who has access to what folders, right? Why does this person get this special expensive laptop and the other person doesn't? It's
Right.
like, well, that's my sister-in-law, But then the employee you're trying to treat as a valued member of the team feels like maybe they're not going to be able to get the treatment or get into the in crowd because they're not related, right?
Right.
So growth causes this stuff, and you end up at a certain point where, you got 15, 20 employees, and you need to start taking those burdens off, right?
Right.
Even, I mean, I used to do the accounting stuff. Well, we had a guy that was doing it in-house for a little while. He wasn't an accountant, but it was like, hey, he's who we had. And it wasn't, he wasn't an accountant. I'm not really an accountant either, but I took over and was kind of helping. We got a gal to do it, and I was helping her with it because she didn't understand the IT side of it, right?
Right.
But you get to a certain point where the person that you trusted who did this stuff, like your wife who was doing the accounting or whatever, you have these people that know all about your business. You 100% trust them. And they're blowing 15 hours a week doing data entry.
Right.
And you're going, man, I've got these 30 employees, and out of those 30 employees, my brother-in-law, I know I trust him. He understands what we're doing, and he's wasting his time, fixing printers, reinstalling printers, right?
Right.
So you take these assets to use those first 5 or 7 people, and you start to realize at 20 people that they're misallocated.
Right.
So it's like, okay, they just need to look over what the outsourced IT people are doing. They need to look over what the outsourced HR people are doing, And you come out the other end several years later, if you get to, 80 or 100 employees or 200 employees, maybe you bring some of that back in-house.
Right.
But
for small business,
yeah,
it's a lot harder to do
it's
that.
a lot harder to do that, yeah. Because you had the same issues. I mean, in HR, maybe you could have one person doing it in-house, maybe. But what if his mom gets sick? He's got to move back to Idaho, and all of a sudden your entire department's gone, right?
Right.
So you hire a nice gal, and she gets pregnant. She goes on maternity leave for months. What are you going to do? You certainly can't do that with IT.
Right.
Because you can't just not have anybody. I mean, you maybe don't have a new hire for 6 weeks, but something's going to break.
Right.
you need coverage, right? So
Well, and coverage from someone you can trust.
right, and all those systems and stuff. If all of your systems aren't systems, they're just one person that you trust who's doing everything manually.
Right.
If they get COVID and they're out for a couple of months, or they go on, sabbatical or whatever, or somebody offers them $15,000 a year more than you could afford to pay them, they're just gone.
Right.
So that's where we see a lot of times, you get to that spot where you've got 10 to 100 employees, and it's like you can't afford 2 people in order to have coverage. And one person, something may happen and they're not available.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring this up because compliance is now an issue in IT now. And normally you don't put those two together, right?
Right.
You're thinking just HR, but now you're seeing compliance issues. So how do you guys handle that? How do you guys help with compliance in IT?
Yeah. So, when it comes to compliance, everybody thinks compliance, HR, government rules, all that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
And you've got compliance where you're just working to make sure the boxes are checked on the form so that somebody doesn't hassle you. And that's one kind of compliance. The other compliance is when you're actually shooting for the real goals of the checklist, right?
Right.
So, when it comes to IT, for instance, maybe somebody, the checklist that you're filling out, maybe it doesn't require 2FA from a certain system, but if the goal is to make your stuff secure, yes, maybe it's on the checklist, maybe it's not, but you still want to do it, right? So a lot of what we'll do on our compliance side is we're going through and kind of shooting for a baseline, because I don't know who's going to send you a compliance list, right?
Right.
Say I have a customer and it's an engineering firm, and maybe they could get a compliance list from their insurance company because they're going to buy insurance. And everybody used to buy insurance in case there was a pipe burst that ruined the building,
Right.
or the building burns down or something. But, one of the major things that can go wrong in a company now is IT.
Right.
Server fails, all the data's gone, somebody steals all the data, someone deletes all the data. I've seen pretty much every variation of all of those. And so that may come up from your insurance agency. It may come up from your clients. You're this cabinet maker guy, and you're suddenly you get an opportunity to go and bid on some city or county project or something, and they're like, oh great, here's this list of requirements, and you're going, I don't track any of that stuff. What are they talking about? But you want that job, right? So now you got to be compliant. So I don't know where that list is going to come from. I don't know what it's going to have on it, but these things follow a general pattern, right?
Right.
Do you have password policies? Do you have policies about what people can do with their computers? Do you have policies about retaining information and deleting information?
Right.
2FA policies, all of that. So we start with kind of the baseline, and we're trying to just grow the organization's complexity in that way. And then, if somebody comes in with something kind of out of left field, it's like, okay, they want the compliance document done in this particular format.
Right.
But we were 80% of the way there, because it doesn't matter if you're talking PCI, you're talking HIPAA, no matter what compliance standard, you can't do stupid things.
Right.
So it's kind of like diets, right?
Yeah.
People are like, I'm looking for the diet. Let's eat ice cream for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. There's not you format it how you want. They all say, get plenty of sleep, get some exercise, don't have ice cream for every meal, right? And yeah, they cut it all different ways, but don't eat stupid, and you'll be a lot further along the way than you will if you're just completely going hog wild with that diet, right?
Right. So let me ask you this: for small businesses, let's say you have a 9-employee business and they're looking to scale. How would you help them out? Because I know usually with small businesses, they're, starting out with their own equipment or their own, maybe they don't have policies in place. It's a lot to think about for a small business. There's a lot of things to think about other than just IT, but
Right.
just the intricacies with IT alone. How would you help out a small business looking to scale?
Yeah. So, small business in different people's mind is different numbers, right? But you
Right.
mentioned 9, right?
Yeah,
So
real
when
small.
when we walk into a 9-person outfit, something I'll pick on something that we see at that size all the time. They're all just texting each other. All communications are just text messages. That is not a scalable thing. And so sometimes just taking and sitting down with them going, okay, look, if you have 9 people, this works fine. This worked fine when there was 5 of you.
Right.
In fact, one of those 5 people was your wife or your brother-in-law or your high school buddy or something. You guys text all the time anyway.
Yes.
And you send each other inappropriate jokes and stuff, right? And you send each other pictures of your new gun, right? And that's perfectly fine. That's your brother-in-law. You want to send him a picture of your new AR-15 or something. That's awesome. If you're going to have 50 employees, you really can't just be sending each other pictures of guns.
No.
Not on. It's just, yeah, super cool with that personally, but it doesn't fly, right? And so you end up with the HR issues, right? And the HR issues and the technical issues, it's all business issues. Everybody's like, oh, you guys are IT, so you must be into computers. Like, no, it's information technology, but it's for a purpose. So when you're looking at that. We'll come in and we'll talk to somebody about Teams, right? And they're like, I don't need Teams. I can just text message. It works fine. Well, okay, let's just roll down the road a little bit. 3 years from now, you've got 15, 16 employees, and they're not all friends from church or buddies from where you used to work or whatever. And you fire one, and they're not super happy about that.
Right.
And they're like, oh, we never fire anybody. Well, of course you never fire anybody. These people are at Thanksgiving dinner, right? You can't fire them. But you're eventually going to find someone that's going to be a dud. You're going to have to fire them. And when you do, everything you ever texted them on their personal cell phone number remains in their text history. And you can't get rid of it.
Scary thought.
Scary thought. And every one of your clients that has that personal cell phone number, I mean, if you happen to have a car dealership, and you've got 15 people working for you and you fire that salesperson, every one of the people who bought a car from that person over the last year that they were here, when they're ready to buy a car again, you want them to call you because you want to sell them another car. But guess what? They're going to call the cell phone number for that guy you just fired who maybe doesn't like you much, right? So, yeah, having the communications go through cell phones is something, it's a growing pain. Everybody's like, I don't want to do that. But you have to do it.
Yeah.
Because you can't separate those things out, and even when it comes back to kind of bringing it back to HR, right? Say you have a car dealership, and everybody like car salespeople, everybody's got reputation, right? But you got 8 or 10 sales guys, and you hire a nice front desk gal, and all communications by cell phone. So now these guys all have her personal cell phone number. I don't know that she wants to sign up for that.
Right.
And I don't know that her boyfriend or husband really wants the guys at work texting her at 9 o'clock at night, reminding her about some meeting the next morning or something. I mean, there's just some of these scenarios where it's an IT problem and it's an HR problem. And so, yeah, a lot of times you're sitting down with a business owner and it's like, look, what worked to get you to 9 people? Work ethic, being a great cabinet maker, right? These kind of things is not necessarily what's going to get you to 90 people.
Right.
Some changes have to occur.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Now on the flip side, with the larger businesses, say you have 40 employees, how do you help them out when they're kind of in this mindset that, oh no, everything's fine. I got my own in-house person. My brother's doing it, or whoever. We handle it.
Right.
How do you handle that?
A lot of times, so when you get to that 40 spot, a whole bunch of people will just kind of run their whole business. So when you're driving a car, you hit the accelerator, the RPM meter goes up, and at some point you got to shift gears, right? You can't just go up, up, up. So that 40 mark, usually what we're seeing is they're stuck at the point where their entire business has been built in Microsoft Outlook and some Excel sheets and that kind of stuff. And it's all done by dedicated, hardworking, trusted employees who are very difficult to replace. And it's all disjointed systems. And yeah, they moved to 365, so maybe they're in Teams already. They figured that out on their own. Maybe they're in HubSpot. They figured that out. Maybe they have this inventory management system and that works for them. But they start looking and they're going, man, I really want to expand to Austin. Or I've already opened a second location in Austin, and now all of a sudden, I don't know how to connect these two places. Multi-location shows up, or they're trying to make these systems talk to each other, and even sometimes you have these companies that get there just through sheer grit, and they've made all the wrong decisions, but they've just worked really hard. I talk about rewarding parts of business, right? We get to see these people that just show up and just brute force employ people and build stuff. It's incredibly motivating to watch people do that. And but case in point, right? I had an organization, let's call them a car dealership. It wasn't quite that, but they had opened multiple locations, and they were all using one shared file system across the multiple locations. And a salesperson at one location, when they heard that the customer had shopped at the main corporate location, the signs outside were different. The customer didn't know that it was the same place. They'd be like, oh, the sales guy over there, yeah, their prices are kind of high, Oh, it took them hours to get you a quote and everything? Yeah, we're way better than they are over there. You would simply open up the sales folder from the corporate location, go into that sales guy's folder, pull the quote, do a save as, mark it down 5 or 10%, and be like, look at this. Like, wow, this is exactly what we were looking for. And it's even cheaper than the other place. And yeah, that's the kind of thing that, they trusted everybody.
Right.
That would never happen. Yeah, that's happening. But this organization, they got to that point. They hadn't segmented out data access. They hadn't connected their stuff properly. And they were just waiting for something like that to happen. Same thing can happen, if they get a virus that encrypts all the files and all the files are shared for the whole company. Yeah. Takes down all the locations at one time. So some of this stuff, it's like, okay, you've built it, you've got it to this point, all your people are trustworthy, it's great. Let's start looking at, we call them ELEs, right? Extinction level event. Old movie, late 90s, right? But deep impact, right? Here comes the asteroid, extinction level event. You move as a business owner from worrying about whether or not you're going to have the money in the bank for payroll and whether or not the printer's going to work to be able to print the paychecks. Right. To thinking, under what scenario would I have to go talk to my employees and let them know I missed it? We're out of business. Everybody, we're working for 3 more days. You are turning the lights off, and the rest of you need to get on LinkedIn and start updating your stuff because, sorry. And nobody wants to be that owner. Right. Right. So when you get to that 40 area, we spend a lot more time looking at that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Oftentimes we see business owners are just used to handling something that goes wrong. And they're kind of in that mindset sometimes that it's okay, it's expected. Right. Right. It shouldn't be expected. These are things that business owners don't have time to do. They need to run their business, but if something goes wrong, whether it be, a compliance issue or an IT issue, they just stop what they're doing so they can fix it and then move on. And they're in this mindset that, well, it's okay, I'm used to it. That's what we're supposed to do, right? And don't realize when you're partnered with the right people, you really don't have to. You can save time. And even save money, because when you're trying to fix mistakes that happen in house, they often are more costly. Yeah. Right? So I'm sure you see that too. We see that too. But,
oh, yeah. Well, in your line of work, that 40-person company, they're just winging it on HR, right? Somebody comes in, somebody posts something on the Teams group or something that was politically insensitive or whatever, right? Or someone changes their signature line and puts something in there that someone takes it the wrong way. And now that business owner who wanted to open a second location or expand, hire 20 more people or whatever. They're going to blow a year fixing this problem that never needed to be a problem.
Right.
And I mean, signature lines, right? We have a product that we actually can roll to clients that will unify all the signature lines, because it's a tech problem, right? But it's really kind of an HR problem. And it's as business owners, do you want to spend your time refereeing whether or not someone puts a political statement or a Bible verse or their pronouns or whatever on their signature line? Or do you want to spend it selling cars or making cabinets or whatever it is that you do?
Right.
And so some of this stuff, it's one of the reasons why, looking at what we do and what you guys do, it's like, yeah, we gotta team up on some of this, because just being able to say, hey, look, this is the corporate signature line. No one can change it. And it deploys automatically. And we just don't have to worry about, because a lot of people, their signature line, they'll put like, they have cats or something, and everybody's cool with it. But when you got 7 or 8 people, fine. When you got 150 people, there will be somebody who wants to pick a fight in a signature line.
Right.
And is that what you want to mess with as a business owner? Not really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Let's talk about supply chain too, though. From what I understand, you guys handle procurement too, right, for businesses. Tell me what the importance is, how you push it, why you push that.
yeah. So, that's something that a lot of times you don't see with an MSP. A lot of times they'll just leave it up to the end customer. There's multiple reasons that's kind of an issue, right? But so for instance, the one-eyed man, we call him the one-eyed man, right? In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. A lot of places have a one-eyed man, and this guy or this gal is there to do a certain job. But since they know some IT stuff, they get wrapped around the axle. So it's like, oh, we're hiring a new guy. Can you run to Costco and go buy him a laptop and set it up for him? It's like, I'm your CFO. Is that what you want your CFO spending their time doing, or do you want them looking at the report so you can, fix some numbers, right?
Right.
And so you have that kind of scenario, and it's like, why do they need to be procuring stuff? You also have the scenarios where, you and Chris show up at an event, and he forgot his power plug for his laptop. Well, since yours was bought at Walmart and his was bought at Best Buy, and yours is Lenovo and his is HP, you don't have matching power plugs. Well, what are you going to do, right? So standardization helps a whole bunch of stuff, and procurement's better for that. And it helps us too. When someone calls up and they're like, hey, I've got a problem with this computer. Well, like, we pretty much do Dell. So my team knows how to do a Dell service request, all that kind of stuff. But if you're using, it's like, oh, I have it warrantied from Altex. Okay, my guy in Michigan or my gal in Atlanta don't even know what Altex is, right?
Right.
But also, how are they going to get it to Altex?
Right.
Right. It's like, oh yeah, let me swing by and pick it up and I'll take it to Altex, right? Or do you want your CFO to drop what they're doing and go drive it to Altex to get it repaired, right? So then you have, on the compliance side, you've got these issues with supply chain, like, where did this stuff come from? And we've been watching, the world has demonstrated 2 or 3 times recently how supply chain can really blow up in your face, right? Apparently Hamas was using pagers and radios up until recently. Well, the Israelis founded a company to sell telecom equipment in Hungary or something like that. They were buying the stuff in South Korea or whatever, shipping it through the supplier in Hungary, and they were supplying telecom equipment to all kind of people. And they won the account for Hamas. Well, this box of pagers is going to Hamas. They put plastic explosives in these pagers.
So scary.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. They spent years setting up this company. It was a real company that actually sold stuff. Well, when they go to war with Hamas, and they called the phone number, and all the pagers beeped, and they looked at it, and it blew up in their face, literally.
Oh my gosh.
So then they were like, okay, no more pagers. So they switched to the radios, which apparently had also been supplied by, the Mossad, and those blew up too. And you see this kind of stuff with supply chain where you're going, I bought a router on eBay. I don't know where it came from. And no, then probably the Chinese aren't packing it with plastic explosives, but when we've got stuff where we have to buy it directly from Cisco. We're not allowed to buy it from anywhere else, or we're violating our Cisco agreements, right?
Right.
But you take something and it's $2,500 wholesale from Cisco, and I get on Amazon, and they're $379. Well, where did that come from?
Right. Yeah.
It's new for $379, and so yeah, you buy that, you stick that in your environment. 7 years later, you've grown. You get a contract over at Fort Sam, and you're still using that router, and all of your traffic is being sent to China, and it can't cost $379 when it wholesales for $2,500. Something doesn't add
Something's
up.
not right.
Yeah, and so we're seeing that kind of stuff. And so where are you getting your stuff? And even with supply chain, if it's all coming from China, and president decides to put tariffs or something, you can have hiccups, and you don't want to deal with any of that stuff, right? I mean, we inventory hardware, and whenever you call up and say, hey, I'm starting a new guy on Monday, and he needs a laptop and a couple monitors or whatever. Well, our people will figure that out. We have a list. If this guy's in the accounting department, he gets this kind of computer. If he's in the CAD department, he gets this kind of computer. We got it on the shelf. Procure it, ship it to his house if he works from home, ship it to the office if he works here, whatever, and take care of it. And that's another post-COVID thing, like people working from home.
Right.
Yeah. You may have 20 employees and they all work here, and then you've got a gal in the marketing department, and her husband gets transferred. He's in the Army, he gets transferred to Maryland or something. You're not going to fire her. Now she has to work remote. And all of a sudden, your CFO, who's been doing your IT part-time, is like, I don't know how to make that happen.
Yeah.
Right? So lots of just changes over time that are showing up, and it's just making it harder for people to just kind of wing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, there's a lot of moving pieces to this, so thank you for explaining that. I do want to ask you a question, though, because I heard there's like an inside joke with your kids and your employees about your equation. I'm curious to know, what's your equation?
Yeah, so, it's kind of funny. Back years ago, I was taking classes on IT stuff. I took those because it was like, oh, this will be easy. I already kind of know how to do this.
Sure.
And turns out it wasn't that hard, but the business part's harder. The the equation was the risk calculation, right? So likelihood times impact equals risk, right? And so my kids give me a hard time. It's like, oh, Dad, blah blah blah. Well, no, I'm not making it up, right? I mean, you have to calculate risks properly, right?
Right.
So, some people will look at something and think, oh, this is a horrible problem, and I've got to make sure that I have a warranty on my webcam. You don't need a warranty on your webcam. The webcam was $78, right? You want a $29 warranty on that? Are you going to even remember where you bought that later? The likelihood of it breaking is not that big.
Right.
The impact of it breaking is nothing.
Right.
So it's not a risk. Like, just
Right.
go buy another one. Or if you're with us, just shoot an email in and one will just show up, right? But you have other things where people completely miss the risk numbers, right? They're looking at, I mean, and you guys see this too, right? In HR, it's like, oh, we're
Right.
not going to have any kind of problems with HR. It's like,
Yeah,
I
how
mean,
many times do you have people come to you when there's a problem?
Yeah.
It could have been,
Could have been
avoided, but
Yeah.
they didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or didn't think it would be them, right?
Yeah.
It won't happen to me.
Yeah. I mean, nobody at my office will ever harass anybody else. Nobody at my office is ever going to have a nasty breakup with each other. I mean, none of this stuff's ever going to happen to me, and we don't have to worry about it. It's like, yeah, it will.
So true.
So, we look at this stuff, and in the IT world, right, I've seen people who refuse to spend money to solve a problem because they don't realize how big of a problem it is. And other people just spend gobs of money on something that wasn't a problem, right? And it's inefficient, So the general calculation, right? The likelihood of the event times the impact of the event shows you the risk. So, I mean, I had case in point. I was in North Carolina or South Carolina, was on the border. I'm not sure which state it was in. The Charlotte's like right there. But anyway, I was there and I was at a company and they had like 45, 50 employees at this location. And I was asking them about backup internet connections. And they're like, we don't need one. I'm like, okay, does the internet ever go down? Nah, the internet never goes down. I'm like, okay, but the likelihood if the internet goes down for 4 hours every year, well, the first 30 minutes it goes down doesn't cost anything. Everybody just goes to the coffee machine. Somebody hits the restroom, whatever. It's back up in 30 minutes. You're probably fine. If you're a hospital, problem. If you're, outbound calling, sales or something, everybody just takes a break for a minute. But you get 2, 3, 4 hours in, it starts to cost you real money. So if you got 50 people and each of them lose half of their day, that's 25 people days.
Right.
And you're paying each of these people like $300, right?
Yeah.
A day at least.
Yeah.
So $7,500. So if it goes down for 4 hours once a year, the likelihood that that's going to happen, if you can look at it historically, the likelihood. It's like, okay, it's going to happen once a year. The impact is $7,500.
Right.
Well, there's your budget for fixing it. If you can fix that problem, you get a backup internet connection for $3,000 a year. Mm-hmm. You just made a $4,500 positive contribution to your organization, right? But on the flip side, if you've got 3 people working at a location and the internet goes down once a year for 20 minutes, don't waste your money. Like, so what? It goes down.
Right.
No big deal.
Yeah.
It goes back to information technology and stuff. It's like, it's not about how cool it is. Like, we can make it never go down. For some people, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Who cares if it goes down for a little bit? For other people, if you're a hospital, wrong system goes down, people could literally die, right?
Yeah.
So it matters a lot there.
Yeah.
The impact's huge.
Yeah. Wow.
So.
Well, you gave us a lot to think about. Yeah. Like I said, a lot of moving parts with IT that businesses just don't have time to think about. Mm-hmm. So thank you so much for providing some clarity to that. Yeah. Are there any last words you want to give to our audience today?
Well, I guess looking at it, there's a lot of right answers mm-hmm. to how to deal with it, right? I mean, some people, they hire somebody internal. Some people, it's a mix, right? They may have an internal gal who's doing the IT, but then, they're going to move offices and they need our help or somebody's help, right? Wiring the office and physically just moving all the stuff and getting it all set back up again, right?
Right.
There's just a lot of those details that have to be done, right? So a lot of right answers. You can do it multiple ways, but I think the biggest thing I would say to the average business owner is just know how it's working. Make sure you got your eye on the ball on that. It's like accounting. It's like HR. If it's done right, it can improve the value of your business, like you're talking about with Chris last week. Mm-hmm. It can improve the function of your business. I mean, or if it's done wrong, it's just an Ellie waiting to just end your business.
It could be devastating.
Yeah, it could completely end it. Yeah. So, definitely keep your eye on the ball on that and, reach out. We'd love to talk to you guys about whatever you might need. It's likely you have needs that you don't really know about or needs that you're going to have in 6 months or a year. But, definitely keep your eye on the ball. And pay attention to that, just like you would with your accounting and the IRS.
Right.
There's no IRS coming after you for IT, but but there's natural consequences of bad decisions and mismanagement that can just take you down.
Yeah.
So
tell our listeners how they could find you if they're thinking about adding managed IT to their business.
So it's SUURV.com.
Okay.
SUURV, right? Mm-hmm. You got to play with the words now. All the regular spellings are all taken.
All caps too, right?
Yeah, all caps, right? It has marketing rules, right? It's got to be all caps. But no, if you type it in lowercase, it'll work in the browser.
Yeah, I know.
But so SUURV.com, and would love to have you got somebody swing by and a lot of times too, just talking about extending the invitation, right? If you want to talk or whatever, we'll run to Alamo Cafe or something. I'm always up for fajitas on the company dime. And just kind of look over some of this stuff and see what might be the need. And the need might be, hey, you guys got it handled. That happens. We've run into a few customers like that. It's like, actually, you guys are good to go.
Yeah.
But I would love to stay in touch with anybody who's looking at that. My personal goal, I want to make sure these small businesses make it. It matters. There's a lot of people that work for these small businesses, and people put their blood, sweat, and tears into getting this stuff off the ground. And I don't want to see somebody at year 7 or year 8 or year 5. They've made it. Their kids' college funds are planned off of this. They're looking to retire in 20 years or whatever. And they just trip.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you said that, because just hearing you say that you care.
Yeah.
You know, the partners that we bring, or the businesses that we bring that we want to do podcasts with, are the ones that we know will take care of our listeners and these business owners that listen to us. That really matters. So just knowing you guys and working with you guys, seeing what you've done for other people, and knowing your values that align with ours as well is so important.
Yeah.
And you guys, all of you guys, that you guys are just family people. Your values and everything, just it's incredible. So I just wanted to mention to the listeners that, you know, the guys at SUURV Technology, they're just genuinely good-hearted people. So wanted to throw that out there because it's true.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that.
Absolutely. So, Steve, thank you so much for joining us and shedding some light on this, and letting our listeners know about what you do. And the next topic of conversation we're going to have in July will actually be about cybersecurity. So actually my parents-in-law, they had their identity stolen and their phone literally stolen, all of the data and everything. So that'll be an interesting story, kind of connecting with the whole cybersecurity and IT thing. But this is going to be more on a personal level for them. Yeah. So listeners, look forward to that. That's going to come in about a month, our next topic. So thank you again for joining us at The Right Seat, and we'll see you next time.